The mind is the most powerful tool in your arsenal. I created this podcast as a daily supplement for you to invest into your thinking. This is your
daily mind medicine.
One of the most fascinating topics in psychology is this idea of permanence. And I've talked about this before, about how it's an evolutionary trick of the brain to create this idea of permanence in our problems, in our setbacks, and in our personal failures. But when you look back on the seasons that seem to go on and on and on and on and on and on forever, were they temporary? How long did they last? Sometimes we'll go into our sales meetings and I'll ask a question, and literally people will find the one philosophic area that defies the answer to the question. They're so philosophic and they're so in the clouds that they can't remember how to put their pants on. Like, let's get out of this. Like, there's a weird philosophical headspace that people get into where they just ponder the meaning of life, but they don't actually do anything. And so when it comes to today and when it comes to what you're actually doing, what you're pushing forward, I think it's really important to have an empowering worldview. Somebody say it with me: empowering worldview. There are things that could be true to the letter of it, but are not empowering in the spirit of it, and therefore they are worth discarding. Back to the point, everything in your life is temporary. You look back at the seasons and the difficulties and the problems, 99% of the time, we inflate and insert permanence into something that really, we can't recognize it as something temporary. And so the problem is we lose our composure. And we begin to thrash around. We begin to lose our control over ourselves from a situation that in reality is not long and it's not that bad. If we really think about it, you've decided that you want more. You've decided that your family deserves more. You've decided not only do you want more, but you have the ability, with the right perspective, with the right knowledge, with the right environment, you have the ability to reach out and take it. And so there's this pattern of beliefs that are stacking up. If you're like me in all of my past experiences, if more than likely what you have found is that you make a decision to level up and you begin to experience trauma, setback, pushback, resistance, turbulence, problems. Sometimes it'll go even as far as betrayals from the people that you love, all because you made a decision to level up into a new place. And it's not always the time during the trauma that kills you. How you deal with the problems you experience here is important. And most of the times when I see people complaining and when I see people whining, it's just not that bad. And listen, hear my heart for a minute. I'm not saying that you can't be vulnerable, because that's actually the true definition of power, is the ability to be vulnerable with your people and to let those people encourage and uplift and share their own vulnerable moments. I'm not saying that we throw away vulnerability. We're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater here. What I'm saying is that more times than not, if you're honest with yourself, you'll look back at the problems and the trauma and the, let's be honest, horrible situations in your life, and if you're honest, you'll be able to see yourself losing composure during the middle of the trauma. And therefore, you've lost access to the lessons after the trauma. And therefore, you never identify the patterns that caused the trauma in the first place. And so we have 40-year-old people dealing with the same messes that they dealt with when they were 20. Because everything follows patterns. Everything follows patterns. Are there things in my life that happened to me that I did not cause? Well, yeah, I'm sure we could split hairs and we could pull out the microscope and we could find that. But far more often, the case is my doing allows the same problems to repeat themselves in different areas of my life, in different seasons of my life. And if you learn the things that I'm teaching you, if you actually can stay composed in the middle of trauma and you get through the end of it and you begin to harvest lessons, probably one of the first lessons you'll come up with was, man, the people around me, did they empower me? Yeah, they empowered me. They empowered me to be less than what I should have been. They empowered me to be weak. They empowered me to be less than. And I noticed probably around 2011, 2012, I started developing the ability to stay calm in the midst of problems. And what was fascinating is I began to lose relationships that I had had for a really long time because I was able to stay calm and because I wanted to be positive, because I wanted to look at the best. And it only takes one comment. It only takes one moment where you're like, this is what I want in life. And somebody looks at you a little bit odd, like, why would you say that? And then you feel it. You feel it chemically. You feel it in your body. A lot of people have a difficult time letting go of relationships or transitioning further away from relationships that are not empowering who they're supposed to be. It really helps a lot for you to understand that whatever pain you're going through, whatever problems you're experiencing, whatever difficulty or setback that is creeping up in your life, you got to remember that it's temporary. You're going to look back at the end of your life when your kids are old and you are passing the baton. We have to remind ourselves that the problems in our lives are temporary. And the second piece is most of the time, we have to understand that most of the time, the problems are caused or allowed by our own patterns. And you lose the ability to identify that when you have lost your composure, when you have lost your ability to think.
DailyMindMedicine.com